Yeah, screw you. I'm still waiting for my shirt.
Well, once I send another invoice to Jeff at findthebestcarprice.com/insider.
Yeah, you'll get a shirt for your dad. Yeah, yeah, I'm not buying that. But what I would buy...
I'm not buying a shirt.
Yeah, apparently not. Yeah, you've proven that for several weeks now. But what I would buy is going to findthebestcarprice.com/insider to find out what all the incentives are that the manufacturers have on every make and model, because Jeff and his team have compiled the most up-to-date listing of incentives, both consumer rebates, cash rebates, for every make and model that you could ever hope to find. Go to findthebestcarprice.com/insider and tell them Zach sent you, and he ain't buying you a shirt.
You know, one of the things I get concerned about when you do the when you do the throws, the pitches, it's like I think your blood pressure elevates and your heart rate elevates, and I know
it's aerobic for me.
It is, but like I think on the East Coast they just had a big snowstorm, so I'm just like a little. You know, people shovel snow and they get a heart attack.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to get a heart attack doing a throw for Jeff. I can promise you that.
All right, so it's Saturday morning.
There was no heavy lifting.
Saturday morning, so we're doing our weekly market update. We have the new data from Black Book. We're waiting on new data from Manheim as well. So next week we'll probably have the Manheim data to kind of juxtapose this.
I can't wait.
Yeah, seriously, the Manheim data is different. I mean, well, just to speak to it briefly, like the Manheim data for November.
Yeah.
I'll toss the chart up on the screen. I mean, they've shown a much lesser decline in wholesale vehicle prices, used vehicle prices, than Black Book has. Interestingly, I mean, that comes from the Manheim auction versus like Black Book, which looks like the market in general. Anyway.
Yes.
We'll have an update with that data next week. We should start with that, I think, before we hop into all the used car information, some of the news and highlights coming out of the new car world, i.e. the production difficulties that they're having.
Yes.
For example, what was it? It was Honda, I think.
Honda had hoped to open their UK facilities again.
Yeah.
And because of difficulties in getting parts from their suppliers and everything else, that was short-lived, and they had to close down the factory once again.
Yeah, and then there's absenteeism at other factories.
Absolutely.
Like Volkswagen said that they anticipate, production issues well into 2021. So on the new car side, it's just this continued struggle to get back to pre-pandemic production levels.
I'm assuming that for the world, enough vaccines can't come fast enough.
And then also on the new car side, you have the end of year incentives. So there are really strong consumer incentives right now driving up new car demand.
Yes. And there's not necessarily enough supply to take care of all that demand. But all those new car incentives are making it more difficult to sell some pre-owned cars. So new car sales, we have large incentives from manufacturers through the end of this month to really move the needle for the end of the year, and that's going to impact hopefully some of the used car valuations that we see in used car retail pricing.
And before we dive into the used car update, one thing to mention, or two things to mention, we have the video on the most aggressive new car incentives. We did that recently. We'll link to it up in the top right, link to it down below as well. And we also just published a couple days ago the video on when to time your outreach for year-end car buying. So pair both of those together with this insight. There are still opportunities there. Just knowledge is power. Watch the videos, feel confident, and then take that next step.
Works for me.
So then, yes, on the used car side, if you have this increased interest in new cars, on the used car side, we've had 3+ months of wholesale price declines.
Yes.
And for the past few weeks in a row of retail price declines. We have some interesting things still continuing on this week.
Starting to see some softening of the retail numbers. It's not national in scope. It's more regionalized in certain areas of the country. Some of the comments we see, oh yes, in my area the prices for both new and used cars are going down, and other comments we see, well, in Chicago the prices haven't changed at all, or in Florida we haven't seen any adjustment in pricing. But the downward pressure is there. And a couple of things that will be driving it. Don't forget, we're going into, after December, the 2 slowest months of the year.
Yep.
So that during December, more and more dealers are not purchasing more used car inventory.
Why would they if they then have to pay the floor planning costs in January and February.
So that they're just going to try, and a lot of them sit out buying cars and just relieve themselves of the existing inventory they have. So with less demand on a wholesale level by dealerships, and I believe wholesale purchases are down about 15% so far this month.
Compared to the summer months.
Yes,
So, there was a 15% increase in the cars going to auction and not selling.
Yes.
Compared to summer months. Like if that's not an indication of exactly what you're describing, I don't know what else would be.
Well, let's see if we can make something up. No. So with that softening, you should see some softening in retail prices. There is definitely a softening of retail demand because the new car pricing, with all the incentives, is driving people to buy new cars and keeping them away from the pre-owned cars, especially the pre-owned cars that the dealers bought 10, 12, 13 weeks ago that they really paid way too much for. Well, they have to price those cars, or they're trying to price those cars so close to a new car retail value that it's making it harder and harder for them to find somebody foolish enough to buy.
The number of emails we get of people saying, I could just buy this new Toyota Camry or I could buy this used one. And the used one's pretty much the same price as the new one. Why wouldn't I buy the new one? And I'm like, no, you would buy the new one.
Yes,
And then
yes.
also, interestingly, we've been doing these consultation calls. And so I had one this morning, Dad, and it was on a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And it was super interesting. The dealerships held on to it for 48 days. So they're
Okay.
coming, and they're coming up to their 60-day term policy,
Yes.
most likely. And on the price history graph, I'll put it up on the screen, you can see, in the past 3 weeks, they went from a list price of $25,000 to now they're down to $22,800. And so I'm on the console call talking to the guy, and he's like, do you think I can get them down anymore? And I'm like, yeah, you probably can, because they're showing you they're going to move it. They need to move
They
it.
need to move it before they have to take it to the auction.
Where it may
and
not
one of the
sell.
things they can see is the same thing that we can see.
And the same thing you can see.
Which is that there's a greater likelihood than had been in the past that they could send it to the sale and they don't get a high enough bid on it that they're willing to sell it. So smart dealerships that find themselves in those positions would look at a retail customer and say, you know what, we'll take an even shorter deal than what we're asking for the car in order to move it, in order to give our finance
Back end.
department the opportunity to see what they might be able to do, and also to create another opportunity for the service department for future service. That's what smart dealerships do. Dumb dealerships will go, well, I'm not going to lose money on this, and they're just going to keep sitting on the car, and they're going to lose customers while they're sitting, waiting for somebody to be foolish enough to pay the price that they're asking.
And just to my dad's point about the back end, feign interest in their financing options, feign interest in their extended warranties, feign interest in all of that stuff to then work the front of the deal. And then obviously on the back end, have a credit union lined up if it's a used car, or contact us about a vehicle service contract if we can help you. And that experience has been great so far as well. We're typically half as much as what they're able to negotiate at the dealer because we have the flat markup of $500. Like, it's very easy.
Well, our expenses are less.
No, yeah, the whole.
Yeah,
there's the
okay.
Whole, Let's not do a whole video on that.
We don't have inventory.
yeah.
We don't have buildings.
Yeah.
So
it's you and me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's more. But
anyway, so one thing I will mention is we haven't touched on it. The week-over-week decline in wholesale prices was still over 0.5 point again. So last week, if you watched last week's video, it was down 0.7 points.
Yeah.
Still a huge decline of it was 0.56. So close to 0.6 points.
So we're
again
down
this week.
almost 1.3%
in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. So even if it averages 0.5 point over the 14 weeks that we've seen steady declines, that's at least a 7% decline in wholesale values, or what dealers are willing to pay wholesale for cars in 14 weeks. That's a big number.
And then think about the leverage you have as the retail buyer if you know how long that dealer's had that listing for sale of that used vehicle. You can
say,
need to liquidate.
Hey, I understand. You paid
Too much.
at least 7% more for this vehicle when you got it 14 weeks ago than you would be paying to replace the car. Wouldn't it make the most sense to take I don't know, some type of small loss so you can at least turn it into cash so that you can go buy a car at 7, 8, 9, 10% less than what you paid for the one you just sold.
And look, Mr. Dealer, I'm interested in, an
In helping you out.
No, and I'm interested in an extended warranty.
Sure.
Just like give your finance manager an opportunity. Like
Yeah.
that positioning will work and has worked.
Yes.
And so it's the whole point of these videos. It's just to make yourself aware of the situation so you can have those talking points
Absolutely.
buying your car. Let's dive into the actual numbers, Dad, breaking out the decline for cars and for trucks. It's worth noting on cars, the decline was not 0.56, it was 0.8. It was 0.8 of a point. So the decline on trucks is what brought the average down across the whole market. But some big declines week over week again.
Subcompact cars down slightly over a point. Compact cars down slightly over a point. Mid-size cars down exactly a point.
Yep.
Those are big.
Sports cars down over a point, which is also seasonal. People are less interested in this in the winter.
Yeah, as well they should be.
Definitely. But you can see across the board, big declines week over week once again. And if you start adding it up, like you were saying, Dad, this is not trivial, the amount of wholesale value that's lost.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're starting to see some weakening on the retail pricing side, it only makes sense. And it will continue.
Yes.
It has to continue.
Yes.
Then we have on the truck side of things, we have some pretty substantial declines across some specific, niche categories, but overall less softening in truck prices. It was about 0.4 of a point. So, for example, full-size crossovers.
Full-size, crossovers were a little more than 0.7 of a point decline. That's pretty big. Minivans continue to drop.
Seriously.
Another almost 0.8 of a point,
Yep.
and compact vans 0.7 of a point. Small pickup trucks, the small ones are down 0.62.
But and even the full-size ones are down nearly half a point. So we're seeing the softening across the board and the continued softening. And so as a car buyer, I think all the talking points we've had around negotiation, like that's what you need to use. That's what you need to convey. Print out the black book report. You know what I mean? Like
take it with you.
Yeah, there's no harm in doing that. Because trust me, dealers, we get a lot of comments, well, we haven't seen prices lower in our area. I can assure you, you're not going to. I mean, the example or the anecdote I gave of the dealer decreasing the price on that Grand Cherokee, which now actually that I'm thinking about, I think it was a Wrangler. Either way, it's a Jeep
Some
product.
type of Jeep.
Like that behavior, it should be expected that you're going to see declines in prices. However, don't expect them to go to a place that's really going to be like a fire sale moment because they're still trying to hold on to make some money.
Yes,
this is all about the actual negotiation and the language and kind of. It's an industry phrase, word tracks. The dealers use word tracks. These are your word tracks
to use.
With them.
Yeah, so that you might be able to motivate them to give you a slightly better deal than what they had hoped.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So new car side, there's increased demand, partly because of the incentives right now at year
at the
end.
End of the year.
There's still the production challenges that we're facing, whether it be from suppliers or from the actual OEM manufacturer as well. Used car side, continued decline in wholesale prices and beginning to see a trend in terms of retail prices declining as well. And also less interest at buying wholesale used cars at auction, which means people are getting ready for slow Januaries, slow Februaries. Could be a really interesting time here at the end of the year and into those coming months for you to get a deal on your next car.
At least a better deal.
A better deal.
Yes.
Prices are still high relative to where they were a year ago. So if you're in the market to sell or trade in your car, we have
still good.
Yeah, and treat them as two separate transactions.
Absolutely.
Like we have, I'll link to it down below. We have the trade-in guide. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I think we nailed this one.
We freaking did.
Yeah. And,
Felt good.
Maybe that'll qualify me for a shirt. Let's find out.
All right, Pops. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.